So today we're doing kind of a double market review from yesterday and today's price action, the trade executions that were associated with both, and then kind of some bias, obviously, an explanation with there, and some 1 minute tape reading tools that hopefully you can use and that I use today that kind of assisted me with my own execution. Obviously, if you have any questions and thoughts, I see someone posted something there. We'll go through those at the end. So kind of treat this like a Q&A as well, if you will. But overall, for me personally, not a bad week. I took about 3 trades, or maybe 4 trades. I don't even remember, but I can't even remember Monday's price action. But okay, a scalp on Monday, a loser on Tuesday, and then a win on Wednesday, a win on Thursday. Today we're covering both Wednesday and Thursday's price action executions. And I know that first off, all-time high conditions are something that has a lot of psychological problems that are associated with. If you're new to trading, if you're new to especially ICT trading as well, all-time high conditions can be scary. And I want to show you kind of how it shouldn't be and how you can obviously look to trade it. But obviously the psychological problem is, or not problem, but illusion that a lot of people have is the fact that, we're at all-time highs. You either try and short it because, it's gone up too far and it's likely to come back, or it's very hard to even take longs because you don't know how far it's going to go up. So it creates this either sense of panic or the sense of indecision, which then creates over trading and over leveraging out of worry because of the fact that either you won't get a trade or you feel like it's going to turn on you at any single point for both shorts or longs. And then that creates indecision. So I want to show you obviously the kind of rules of engagement that I have for all-time highs, and so you don't have to really worry about it, and obviously the executions along. All-time high conditions, the main point obviously for this criteria and really any criteria in general when you're looking for bias is one simple statement that is price will continue in the trend direction until it's obviously reversing. And it's a very simple tool that a lot of people use, but it's applicable even here where that same exact thing is true. Anytime we're at all-time highs, you're not trying to pick tops. You're not trying to short it because it hit the buy side. You're not trying to short it because it quote unquote went up too far. You continue to trade the trend until you see something that it shows, okay, it's obviously reversing now and it's likely to come back for sell stops or some sort of internal gap that was created in the previous week or previous day, etc. So I had that same bias coming into the week. We had obviously that last week we had this large expansion up. That to me is not, I'm not looking at this as, we've gone up too far. I'm not looking at this as, we've created this large range and now we're going to come back into it. Just because we purged the all-time high, right? That buy side liquidity pool. I don't have that thought. I'm continuing to trade what's shown on the chart. And if I don't care from now until September, if we shoot up every single day, you best believe it's an easy bias because we're just going to continue to get that. You wake up in the morning looking for longs, and you're going to continue to look for that until it's showing you completely opposite or you have good data for the other side. So that's kind of the psychological thing for it. I don't want it to be difficult, and that's my approach, and it served me well. And I want to make sure that you've rid all of those kind of illusions because they're illusions that we have psychologically, and either someone has told us this or we have believed that that's how the market works, when in reality it's sometimes the complete opposite. And I love to trade these conditions when there's a huge psychological tendency that retail traders have, because to me, it even pushes in one direction further. So for this week, especially, we had a shortened week. We had NFP obviously today, and then tomorrow we have a bank holiday. So anytime you're in these kind of conditions, and for me personally, I've never dealt with something like this, NFP on a Thursday and a shortened week kind of like this, I don't really know too much to expect. So I'm relying on obviously my skill as a trader to identify those new conditions and play with them, and also rely on things that I know and things that I've heard of in the past to capitalize on moves. So specifically, the core content month 7 market maker model templates for the weekly profiles. There's one very specific profile, and that's called the seek and destroy bullish profile. You can go back in, you can look at it. I explained this on the market review for Tuesday. If you want to go in and watch that, you can. But that exact profile is present in the NFP weeks of July and August. I can probably pull up this picture really quick, but I'm not, it's going to take too long to do that. Or actually, you know what? Let's pull it up just so it doesn't sound like I'm making it up. But that exact profile is what I was looking for on this week. We have a kind of after Tuesday, to me, it showed, okay, we're kind of purging both sides of liquidity. We're forming low resistance buy side. And then coming into Wednesday, obviously that run on stops externally. A lot of people are looking potentially for shorts because of the fact that we just took out the sell side here after running the sell side here. It's a very weird kind of visual, it looks hard kind of to get a good bias off of that unless you know exactly what you're looking for. So let me screenshot this really quickly. So this is the exact thing that I'm looking for right in here. So you have the probability of the profile itself is neutral to low, and you can see how to anticipate. Non-farm payroll can create this profile in the summer months of July and August. Better to avoid these trading conditions, obviously, unless you know what you're looking for. So this right here is, to me, what I was seeing on Wednesday is that run on stops externally. We also had SMT down there between ES and NASDAQ. And we also have on this kind of blue line, you can see all those resting buy orders, low resistance, swing high, swing high, swing high, swing high, swing high, without any stop runs. And that to me is showing, okay, we're building that kind of relative equal highs and also purging this other side. And that's going to give a good kind of range for me to look for longs. I'm going to show you the bias that I had coming into yesterday. Screenshot this and we can kind of go through that. So this is my bias going to yesterday. Consolidation reversal profile could be in play, as mentioned from the market review yesterday. Constant sweep on the external range down here and lack of displacement anywhere indicates the likelihood NFP will be the major expansion. Boom. Playing it very safe today. Soft bias is a run back up into the consolidation range and possibly the new week opening gap. If it drops, we'll play the continuation downwards, but only as a short-term scalp because I don't want to be trading against the grain. I'm intently watching it today for learning purposes, so I'll most likely not have a stream unless opening range is extremely good. Stay safe, good luck, good trading. So on Wednesday, I did not have a tape reading stream because I was personally just executing, and I just wanted to watch what was going on, and we kind of had a very high quality execution that I was almost able to take the low of session to the high of the day on Wednesday, and I'll show you that. So we ran out the external range, and then on a lower time frame on the 15-minute chart, we have this expansion up forming an inefficiency. It's just a simple displacement. And then on the 5-minute chart, as we're seeing, you have a change in the state of delivery with an inefficiency, and then it's trading back into that, and then starting to leave going into 9:30. Now, if you look at when the New York session, when the New York session actually starts, you have the run of the PM session low, and this here is already being used as your manipulation, right? You had 8:15 news or something on Wednesday. That's already being used as your manipulation. You run into a gap, you run stops, it starts to displace away. And if we know that, okay, 9:30 is going to be that volatility injection, and volatility injections are going to be used as one of two ways, either as manipulation or expansion, and we already manipulated, and I believe we have a bullish bias, 9:30 should do what? Most likely expand. Obviously in line with bias and in line with PD arrays. And you can say the same signature right in here. Very clean, all these relatively equal highs all being placed in, right? I love to see that coming into the session because to me, this looks like a classic New York open reversal. New York making the low of the day, London making this kind of pool of liquidity we can target, and then the high of the day being put in at London close, basically near 12 o'clock. So as I came into that, that was my expectation in terms of price action. Bias higher. We already manipulated coming to 9:30. Okay, boom. I'm going to look for potentially a 9:30 entry if it gives it to me. On a 1-minute chart, very cleanly, we had inefficiencies holding and being used prior to the 9:30 open. So we dug back into that 5-minute gap. There's also a 1-minute gap in here being used. And then eventually a displacement away, past a swing high. And then as we're going to 9:30, I'm liking that. So I don't believe that 9:30 in the beginning for a lot of people, and myself included, was a scary kind of time of day to trade because of the heightened volatility, because of the fact that I'm scared it's gonna wick me out and I'll be wrong. But when you understand that it's there to serve a purpose, and we understand that obviously everything else coming into it, um, it's nothing to be afraid of. Just like 10 a.m. news today. I was in the trade before 10 a.m. news came out, and I'm not worried that it's going to run against me if you know what it's looking for. You have this last manipulation leg here. Last manipulation leg, whoops, right in there. Puts you at the -2, -2.5, right on that new week opening gap that I was looking for. Flux, why were you looking for the new week opening gap? Run on sell stops from previous daily low. That would be an internal range premium, right? As well as on a higher time frame on a 1 hour chart. What else do you have in premium in form of a gap? You have this gap right here. That's a premium inefficiency. It lines up with -2, -2.5. You have up here, this gap right in here. You also have the buy stops from 7 a.m. and from 10 a.m. That's relatively equal. And both of those are actually time-based liquidity pools. So I like that as a draw. I like this as a draw, as London high, and then I like the new week opening gap as a draw. All of which are high quality buy side pools. Oh, can you not hear me? Everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Okay. Yeah, Alex, someone just tell Alex to restart. Good. Okay, thank you. So all of those are high quality pools. And in line with bias, that's what I want to be shooting for, as well as time of day. So on a lower time frame chart, I'll show you the execution I took on Wednesday. Oh, it's already pulled up. Never mind. Right in here, you have the first execution going to 929, expecting that 930 is going to expand. Another one in here, an immediate rebalance, dropping down to the order block in there, and then another on a SIST, basically just buying on every single bullish P dividend that I see to fit in line with my bias, right? You have a very classic inefficiency there, being tagged perfectly in discount during what time? The 950 macro offering the inefficiency plus the bullish order block right in here. Beautiful. Also within what? The -1 to -1.5. What zone is that? The silver bullet. So silver bullet in there, paired with the inefficiency, paired with the bullish order block, paired with discount, paired with the macro time, that is a very high quality entry. So if I'd missed these ones, or potentially if you're looking for a macro trade, that right there at 10 o'clock on the dot is exactly what you're looking for, right? Then we displace up again, form a tiny gap, reclaimed or reuse that. And then as it's digging up to the new week opening gap, taking some off there. Also in line with -2, -2.5. As it runs the London high, taking some off there. And then I'm leaving my runners for the buy side liquidity right above this 7 a.m. high is what I was looking for on Tuesday that I lost on, as you can see right in here. So this buy side is what I'm shooting for as my final limit. And you can see as well the time of day that's running that out. Here's 1600. Get out there, slightly above that buy side liquidity. And then that's pretty close to the high of the day. About what? 3 points off from the high of the day. So in this trade, I missed some of the bottom. What can you do? I'm not taking a trade at 8:30 in the morning, to be honest. The earliest I can look to trade is around 9:15-ish. So for me, low of the session to the high of the day, very high quality trade that I'm happy about, just because of the fact that I managed my risk. This is basically the same exact model that I took on Tuesday, and Tuesday it lost. And then I come in on Wednesday, get a bias, basically the same bias on Tuesday, same entry as on Tuesday. And this one happened to be a winner. And the thing I'm proud about is the fact that I managed my risk. Was not emotional. I was not trying to get anything back. It was simply just trading the model that I saw fit. And this ended up being something like an 8R plus I think with the final runner or something around 11R. And obviously that makes up for the loss on Tuesday. But at that point, I also was expecting, as we close through the new week opening gap, that we were going to go for the current weekly high up here. As said with the profile, right? That external purge on the sell side, this currently weekly high becomes the draw. Let me pull up the picture here. All right, that current weekly high, the relative equal highs, becomes the draw going into Thursday and Friday after we have the purge of the sell stops right there. So in the daily bias for the private group, that was what I said at around 10 o'clock. Right in here. Current weekly high looks to be the draw for tomorrow. Will adjust as necessary. So I was debating on whether or not to hold runners on Wednesday, but with the fact that NFP was on Thursday, I did not want to be in a trade and have the chance that it slips me. Even if I do think that it was going to go for this high, just my own personal rules, I don't want to be in a trade on a tier 1 unless I'm trading that exact movement. So to me, it's just, I'd rather just take the second trade if it offers it to me and leave this out. So I did leave some money on the table there. It is what it is. It's not part of my model to hold it overnight, really. Very, very rarely will I ever hold a swing. I'll trade the daily range, but I won't really hold overnight that often, if ever. So that's the Wednesday breakdown, and obviously the bias going to the trade. And then Thursday, to me, it was a pretty simple bias. I think, okay, the close here, haven't ran out that swing high yet. That was my bias, was okay, on Thursday, we're going to continue up. Even if it's NFP, we're still going to go up. And this is exactly where you have this run on buy stops, external range liquidity. You may be looking for internal range. And that's why we're not trying to pick tops. That's exactly what I said in the beginning of this stream, was that you're not trying to pick tops. It's going to keep going up until it obviously reverses. So until you see it clearly have some sort of a 4-hour SysD or something like that, you're not going to try and short it. For like an actual long, or I'm not going to try and short it for a long range trade on demo, of course. So on a lower time frame, or even on a 1-hour chart, you've got this drop down in here, holding roughly this 1-hour inefficiency. And this also on 15-minute chart just drops down here and starts to come into 8:30 news. NFP spikes up and takes out the current weekly high. Let's call this current weekly high buy side. So when I saw that in the morning, I'm thinking, okay, let's see how now we react on 9:30, because even though we have that run on stops, it could come back down. So I want to be vigilant against to see, okay, I'm not going to just blindly keep spamming longs just to make sure. So I sat out of 9:30 today. I got in slightly after, but I wanted to see how 9:30 is going to play out. And we have this wick on buy side. It comes back down. And then I want to see how order flow is going to hold. If it were to reverse, right, and we wick this buy side, what are you going to see? SysD with displacement, holding new order flow, SMT at the highs, etc. You don't really see that. On the 15-minute chart, you can kind of see this. Also notice this last manipulation leg here. On a 5-minute chart, what do you have coming into 9:30? Gap here, runs the buy side. It's going to go from buy side back into discount, offer discount, right? Comes back into discount, touches the order block, fills the gap, and then shoots up again. Inefficiency, fills that inefficiency, trades back up. What do you expect 9:30 to do? The order flow is showing you what it's likely to do, even if it ran out that buy side. So although I was pretty confident, I knew where 9:30 was going to go, it was not, to me, I wasn't as convicted as I was the day before, where I just wanted to see how it would play out, to be completely honest, and then take a trade after that, because there was plenty of time it could still run. So I wasn't concerned with missing the move, quote unquote, if 9:30 had expanded away, right? I can either take the 950 macro, I can take something in between. There's plenty of opportunity where I'm not stressing about that. You have this last manipulation leg that I said as well. And notice the closure through the -2 to -2.5, right? 9:30 tags that as that kind of last manipulation, or the terminus you expect. It wicks into it, of course, and then it starts to close through. And if you're in the private group, I was calling for in the predictions chat, 23,043. And that's that level right up here, 23,043. And this is from the last manipulation leg on the daily candle, right? Anytime we're using a fib projection, it is going to be for some sort of range, either the daily MMXM, like from midnight to close, that kind of MMXM, the open, low, high, close. It could be for the session MMXM. It could even be for the weekly MMXM, right? You have on a 1 hour chart, actually, you can notice in here, this last manipulation leg on the weekly, that puts you up as a target for potentially for tomorrow or for Monday, right? And now you can see all those kind of the week, the day, the session all lining up. That makes this a very likely expected terminus for potentially a move, even on a bank holiday or even on Monday or Tuesday, drawing up into this kind of this target, even maybe up into here. We'll see. But that was my kind of bias in terms of a draw. As you're dealing with all-time high conditions, you don't really have buy side, right? There's kind of a lack of buy side unless you're dealing with a very recent swing high. It's like, what do you target? We're so far up. What are you trying to look for? So for me, it's going to be a combination of, if I don't have something in the y-axis to target, I'm using two things. If I can't use price targets, I got to use two things. Time targets, time as an exit, as well as standard deviations. So when I see, okay, we're closing through the -2, -2.5. This is the last manipulation leg for the daily range. I got -4 to -4.5. That gives me 23,043.75. And that's why I said, right in here, still looking healthy, I want 23,043. And that's where that level came from. And then 23,088 will be my runner. Flux, where does that come from? That's probably another standard deviation projection. Where would that be from? Right in here, we have a 1 minute chart. Let's come through. So let's go back to the 5. Obviously, gap, order block, touches it, expands. Fair value gap, touches it, expands. Breakaway gap. So order flow is clearly bullish on the 5 minute. You don't need to see a 5 minute SysD for this example for a 1 minute trade. 5 minute order flow is already in line. Bias is in line from the weekday session perspective. I'm just looking for longs. All right. And then on 1 minute chart here, I'll take you kind of through this price action. But like I said, I wanted to see how 930 was going to play out, even if I knew kind of, or not knew, but was highly convicted of where it was likely to draw to. There wasn't as good of an entry to me as there was on Wednesday. There was no fair value gap here being traded into, and this kind of energetic run up. I don't really want to be just logging it off of nothing, because where do I put my stop then, right? If 930 wants to wick back into this gap, I can reasonably see that. Even into this gap, I can reasonably see that. So that I place my stop here and just long it. That's quite a large stop. So I want to then potentially be avoiding that possibility by just taking a better trade that's going to be later on in the move. And that's where, for me, my tape rating skills will come in. I'm very familiar and comfortable with the 1 minute chart, where I know that even if something goes on, I'm not going to worry about missing a move, because there's multiple different bus stops every single 15 minutes that I can get in on. So in this case, 930 expands up, and this is what we'll call this uncharted territory, right? You look to the left of basically this high, and you got nothing. There's nothing over here, meaning there's no buy side, there's no swing high from April, from last February. This is all-time highs. So if there's no swing high and there's no balanced price range, and we shoot up here, would this be efficient or would this be inefficient? Most likely, it would be inefficient, meaning it offered buy side in here and failed to offer sell side, meaning this would make this a buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency, a bisi. An inefficiency, not there's fair value gap, of course, that's the signature, but there's multiple classifications of the gap itself. A bisi is inefficient. What is it going to want to do? Preferably come back and balance that in some sense. You got an order block here. That's a reference point of where it's showing you it's balanced in here. So it expands up. Eventually, what? It generates this. Even here, you can see it. Generates this low resistance buy side. Comes back down. Touches the bullish order block. And it starts to expand away. Got a gap in here. fills the gap, starts to leave it, this is where I'm going long. Why? Because now, if I'm going long in here, and I believe PD areas are starting to hold, right? Order block there being touched, hold, swing inefficiency, swinging in, closing there. It's starting to displace and take out that high. That low, in theory, should be protected. Why should I have to come back down into this? Why should I have to take out that stop? Why should I have to come further down into this range when it just balanced out that entire inefficiency, right? Let's actually come over here. It just balanced out that entire inefficiency, and now it wants to show that it wants to leave. So I can now get in here, about roughly here, about 22,971.5 is where my entry was, and put a stop there. And now I have a much tighter stop, and I can still look for my targets, right? And now you can see in here, okay, this is efficiently delivered. It starts to expand up, and now you have a mitigation block you could be using right in here, right? And actually you can use this last up closing candle, expand that out. Gap there being used with that order block. That's another re-entry point. What time is that during? Macro time. So it's an entry given during macro time. That's great. Then it expands up again. You have a short-term dealing range between this high and this high. If you wanted to use that, boom, drops into the order block plus gap and discount. That's a retracement style of entry if you don't like the reversal style there. Expand it up to there if you want to. Another entry offered there. Another offer entry there. Then you got the news. Boom, shoots up towards the draw. I will admit the on MNQ you do have a wick down as well as there's some NSMT there, but to see 8:30, 9:30, and 10 o'clock all expand towards the draw is quite rare. I will say that it's rare that you see that. I'm all here for it. Order flow is still going to be king. The draw and liquidity is still going to be king, and everything else that's lining up, it doesn't matter. So I believe that news is going to spike up. It is nicely. I'm taking a partial off on that 23,043 level that we talked about on the daily kind of manipulation. I think 80% of my contracts came off there. And then eventually we have you can see in here, this low, high, lower low. This in here is not a reversal leg. It's a kind of a retracement. Now you can kind of see we don't really have any clear this going on within the session. So this is a little bit more advanced in terms of targeting, but this, I can still pull this as a fib projection. And if you're new, it's going to be kind of confusing there, but every sort of fractal market maker sell model within the larger buy model, this you can fib project, this you can fib project, this you can fib project, and they all should be lining up towards some sort of level. So a little bit more of an advanced pull there, but to me, okay, this to me is going to be used as the session draw. We just had the daily draw in terms of a fib, and these are all for price targets because we have no buy side. Remember, that's the daily draw. This would be like a session last manipulation, right? 930 expands there. This is like basically the last manipulation before it starts that move. So I can use that, and that gives me this -2, -2.5, and this is that level here that I was talking about. 2388 would be my runner. This right here is at 23,087.5. So 2388 is my runner, as well as the fact that you can use time of day. If the low here is formed at what time? 9:30 to 10. What time should the other format? We're expecting 10:30 to 11, right? So boom, it runs up there. 11:08 forms the high. What time does it form the high right here? 10:30 on the dot. So you got that forming time. This is where I say you can use time as an exit, as well as the fib projections. So now you have a kind of a crosshair, if you will, of time and price that it should reach. And then eventually it kind of runs up a little bit higher, and then trades it and wilts off in the rest of the day. And let me pull up that execution right now. But even if you go back to Wednesday, you can see that same time element going on where you have within that static session, meaning between the lines of 9:30 and 11 o'clock, we're not even looking at over here. The low between that static session is at 9:30, 2, and then you have up here 10:51. So now you've got time as well as an exit, obviously combined with the buy side there. But then this trade over here was about a 5 to 1 or 6 to 1. Let me pull up the screenshot for you. You can see the full execution. Right in here. This is on prop firm. Just buying it, like I said, 22,971.5, and then pyramiding in, taking some off just as a low-hanging fruit. Majority coming off, 80% coming off at the 23,043 level, and then a couple other ones coming off on that 23,88 level that I talked about. So like 80% off here, 20% off on the runners, and then in total that was about a 5-hour trade. So day before that, decent trade as well in here, trying to get basically session low to session high. And this is why when everything is lining up for me, I know that I'm going to be able to execute. So when we're in a consolidation range and I can just take these tiny scalps, I'm not worrying about, I'm not going to hit my goals. And you shouldn't worry about either, because when days like this line up, and if you know what you're looking for, it's going to be much easier to hold these trades. And I encourage you to come back and study this, because I'm showing you these trades not as a, oh, look at me. I never want my executions to be like that, and I don't owe to show it either way. But as a, number one, as a, if you're new, as maybe something to look up to in terms of, I'm a regular guy, right? I wasn't in ICT's mentorship. I wasn't in his private group, his charter group. I'm just like you. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and this is now, with God's wisdom and God's guidance, this is what I'm able to do. And I'm very blessed. And this is something that I never thought was possible. And it is taking session low to session high, or daily low to daily high, things like that. To me, it's just, the only thing that I can say it's through is obviously a blessing with the wisdom. And number two is just hard work. It's just watching videos, showing up. And I did all this when I was studying and then taking classes as well. So number one, it's to look up to it. Maybe if you're new, or if you're studying, that something like this is possible, where even if we're in a consolidation range, even if price action is difficult, even if we're at all-time high conditions, even if it's NFP week, you can destroy these markets. And I want to give you that confidence. And number two is to show that when everything is lining up, you can hold trades much longer compared to obviously when you just have the session bias, and having those approaches as well, the variable approaches to have, okay, when this is lining up, I know I'm just scalping. And when this is lining up, okay, I can hold it for the daily range. And when this is lining up, okay, I'm not going to sit, I'm going to sit out. Right. And having those different kind of protocols that you follow is very beneficial, because number one, you're releasing yourself from any expectations to reach goals, like, oh, I got to get a win, right? Or I got to get a trade. If you know, okay, my protocol today is to sit out if this criteria isn't met, is one of the most important things I think I have for myself, because it creates boundaries where if price action starts deviating away from these two goalposts, I know that it's entering into conditions that I'm most likely going to lose in. And it's just low probability, right? I probably have a better chance of flipping a coin than I do of actually taking a high quality trade, where I'm either going to just get a 2 to 1, or I'm just going to get a losing trade where I know that that's not something I want to be engaging in. And if I do lose on those days, I know I manage my risk. And Tuesday was a great example of that. I can actually show you that execution if you weren't on the market review on that day. I got stopped out within like 2 minutes. Patient throughout here, and I'm very happy about that, because patient, not waiting for, I didn't want the macro setup, I didn't want the news, waited for the displacement, got in here. That's kind of a bad entry on my end too, to be honest. I don't really like that looking back at it. Same thing with this pyramid entry, and then stopped out there. So tight risk, but I can learn from this. And what I learned from this is very hard profile and hard price action to trade, where there's nothing I could have really done better other than sitting out. And I look back at this, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's something I should have just sat out on. I don't think it was anything emotional. I think it was just price action that I probably was forcing something there that probably wasn't needed coming into the news. And when you look at losing trades as opportunities to learn, and obviously even if you look at winning trades as opportunities to learn, it keeps you at that baseline, where if you lose, it brings you back up to baseline because you know that it's just tuition for a better model. When you win, it brings you down to the baseline because you know that even though the trade was great, there's always something to improve on. So the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of learning and the pursuit of being better is one of the best kind of emotional stabilizers you can have. And that's why I love doing these market reviews, because for me, it's a way that I can come in and kind of just see what did I do wrong, and how could have it maybe it may not be a lot of things in terms of an execution, but maybe I could have managed my stop loss better, or I could have pulled my exits better. I could have maybe just gotten a better bias, things like that, where there's always something that I can improve on. And like even for here, okay, 9:30, I could have maybe taken a trade at 9:30 and looked at placing a stop in here. But to be completely honest, I don't think how confident I would have been doing that. Maybe just buying it on this gap instead of waiting for the SysD. Maybe I should have just done that, right? And placed my stop there. I think that also could be a valid entry. And then exit wise, I'm quite happy, I think, with my exits. I don't think there's a whole lot of things I would have done, I would have changed in there. And I'm also very happy about my patience, waiting and things like that, where it's the emotional stabilizers. And obviously, I tie my satisfaction to that, where it's like, okay, the win and loss means nothing. To me, it's all about the process. It's all about how did I manage myself? How did I perform? And the performance is there's obvious variability to it, where if you tie yourself to the outcome, something that almost has no actual indication of your performance, right? I took the same trade on Tuesday as I did basically today, and on Wednesday, one lost, the other two won. Why is that? It's in a sense that there's some inherent luck. And as ICT traders, we don't like to hear that because it's algorithmic, right? We know that. But in a sense, there is some inherent luck to taking trades. Why do some trades lose? Why do some trades win? Obviously, there's a logical reason why you lost and why you won. You're in line with price action or you're not. But the human side of this and the actual probabilities of that model is its probabilities. So in that case, there's just variance. Maybe it's not luck, it's just variance. Meaning you flip that coin, sometimes it's going to land on heads, sometimes it's going to land on tails. And there's no luck in that. It's just that's how the probability of the coin plays out. We just have a weighted coin. We have an 80-20 coin, right? Or a 70-30 coin, or maybe even a 20-30 coin, 20-70, 20-80 coin, where your RR is maybe 6R on average. So you only need a 20-80 coin. So I love to do these market reviews and obviously tape read and things like that and I love trading because it just pushes me to, it really pushes my boundaries of always pursuing, right? And it's not to be greedy. It's not to be kind of just always like attacking something and wanting more, because there's really, it's vanity in that. It's more of just pushing what you see to be possible, right? Pushing your limits and how good of a trader can I be? Eventually, my goal is I want to be able to be confident enough to take the weekly low to the weekly high, and preferably do that at least once a month. That's kind of my goal in trading, is if I'm able to get pretty close to that weekly low and take it all the way up to that weekly high, that's kind of my, not end goal, but I'll know that I really pushed my limits, because when I first started ICT trading, I would have been happy, and I can show you my executions. I would have been happy with this move right here. And maybe that's a point that you're at as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, because we all have humble beginnings. If you watched my old tape readings, or even if you're with me for a while, you know that I had a static 20-point take profit. I didn't care what was going on. It was just I would take my profit at 20 points or at 40 points. And I'd be trading a 1-to-1 just during the macro time, taking the first fair value gap during macro time, trading a 1-to-1. And this was my trade. And to me, I would be happy with that, because that was all that I saw as a consistent kind of thing. And now that I'm able to see more and do more, a lot of those psychological problems have gone away through the understanding of the market and through the model. But I pushed my boundaries of what I saw. to be possible. And that's why I love trading. Is it's not a very hard thing to do, but it's very rewarding at the same time. And it has nothing to do with wins and losing, but rather just the constant battle and management of yourself. You don't have to have streaks. You don't have to like think, oh, I got to do this for 5 years in a row. You don't. You just take it day by day. So I know that today I managed my risk. Today I took a solid trade. I didn't force anything. I journaled after the fact. Then this right here is my review for the day. So I did everything I was supposed to be doing. And then I can go to sleep. And I'll have the energy to do it on Friday. Obviously, it's a bank holiday tomorrow. We got the weekend off, so you're just taking it day by day and seeing what you can do. And there's not a lot to it, other than that. And sometimes we overcomplicate it with the amount of stuff that we think that is required going to trading. But if you just separate each individual day, where you wake up and you realize, like, tomorrow you'll wake up and you probably will roll out the same side of the bed. You wake up basically at the same time. It just feels like a reset. It almost like, to me, when I wake up, it almost feels like that when those first couple of minutes of me waking up, it's like the same exact thing. Like I just spawned in. Like I'm like, this is the same exact thing. And I just know I have some assignments to do. And if I get through those, I leveled up on that kind of day. That's all the approach you have to do. And in that manner, it becomes much easier to deal with kind of the willpower side of it, where I just have to have the willpower to be disciplined today. Obviously, I'm every single day before I get into the charts, I'm doing a mental assessment. I'm doing a bias assessment where I'm saying, okay, number one, obviously, what's the market showing me? And then number two, what is my mind showing me? Am I ready to trade today? Am I actually in a good mental state to trade today? And if I find anything is not a blatant yes, and I have to almost convince myself that I'm good enough to trade today, like in a mental state, then it's a no, right? If it's not an obvious yes, then you got to figure out what it is. And that's what Mark Douglas talks about in The Disciplined Trader. And I love that kind of mental checklist where you're seeing, okay, if you have to almost convince yourself and you have to spend a lot of time in that kind of thought to make it a good thought, there's obviously some sort of deep rooting thing that you're avoiding. So in terms of a market review, that's really all I have for those past 2 days. I think it's a very, very good week to learn from, because it's going to be I think the early part of this week was challenging, and then it just kind of cleaned up after Tuesday, like Wednesday, Thursday. And this is exactly why you want to be trading when the week, the day, and the session are all lining up, right? When they're all lining up, it's much easier, right? Like for earlier in this week, Monday and Tuesday, you had the week pointing up, right? The weekly draw ended up being higher, so the week is pointing up, but then you have the day and the session almost moving lower. Actually, on Monday, you almost have this, right? The day ended up closing basically flat. The session was bearish. The week was bullish. This is a very hard price action to, like, it's just very hard conditions to trade in compared to something like Wednesday and Thursday, where everything is pointing to the same direction. It's going to be a smooth, every single news driver is going to send it up. That's the kind of price action that I would say to focus on. And you actually know when this is going to happen because of the economic calendar, right? Economic calendar, the first high impact news. Look for a 4-hour swing low or a 4-hour gap to be traded into. I promise you it's going to be there. See that reaction. And as long as now you believe that we're in this part of the week, right? That weekly open, low, high, close, then you look for that same exact frat to move in the day. Make sure we're now in the expanding part of the day. Same thing you wait for in the session. Are we now in the expanding part of the session? All those have lined up. Take the first bullish PD array. It's a very good kind of, and maybe not do it in demo, but maybe just look at that visually at that point in time when all those things are lining up. See how many PD arrays are holding and how quick those energetic runs are going on, and you'll see it's very, very easy to get high quality trades in those kind of scenarios. All right. Mr. Wade said, also, if you could, thoughts on the way I journal? Let's take a look. I like it. I like the setup. I like the entry, the risk. I would just say you probably should extend the right and wrong and the rule following thing. Let's look at the right. Yeah, the right screenshot looks to me perfectly fine, because me personally, I have about, obviously this is the way that I do it. I have about 2 to 3 paragraphs that I write each individual day, about like 200 to 400 words. Um, and it's really just a mental assessment. It's okay, what am I proud of today? What did I do good? What did I do bad? And it's not always a technical side of it, right? There's obviously things that we can look at and say, oh, technically I should have saw this. And that's normally pretty easy to spot, but more of like a mental side of it, right? Especially when I lose, there's always going to be a mental side of it where, okay, what was it mentally that happened, or what was it mentally happened that happened after the trade? Um, Let me actually see if I can pull one of those up. I know they're quite personal, but I do want to see if I can share one of the things from maybe from today, or let's see. Here, okay, I'll read you. Hmm. All right, ready? So this is my one from yesterday. Obviously I'm logging that trade like you did, but this is how I kind of wrote in my journal. I managed my risk, took a good trade during 9:30. I can trade. I defeated my mind. I defeated the negative thoughts saying I couldn't trade. I didn't overtrade or take anything stupid. I am good enough. I can trade. I hit an 8R today just by managing my risk and taking the same exact trade as I did yesterday. Just my bias was right and I got in with some good variance. Variance was on my side today and I won. It's just like poker. You're dealt with some good cards, luck is a bit in play, and you just manage your risk and eventually you win. Could have done better. I'm pretty happy with my entry, exits, taking partials, and managing my stop loss. I don't want to say that there's nothing to improve on, because there always is. I will find it in the market review stream and list 3 things that I can do better on. Keep the same. Take profits I think were pretty good. Change probably my mental game and still have weapons against the evil thoughts that come flood into my brain. There were some pre-market things that I was dealing with, just walking into, nothing major, but just um, I lost on Tuesday, so there was just 1 or 2 thoughts that came in pre-market where I was a little bit more hesitant getting into my unusual trade, just because I was like, okay, what if this one loses? But then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to manage my risk, and having those kind of sword and shield against those thoughts is super powerful. And then right at the last paragraph is, I will continue to manage my risk in profits and drawdown, and be consistent in doing so. Because I believe I will achieve. Even when I see the dark, I will manage my risk. Even when all things are against me, I will manage my risk and conquer the self. I will not quit. I will not give up. I will not give in. So that's my personal journal from Wednesday. So I'm seeing what I'm proud of. I'm seeing what I maybe could have done better on, and I'm constantly in my journal writing this love letter to myself, like ICT says, where I'm encouraging myself. I'm giving myself confidence. Where even if I win, even if I lose, it should look the same. Where I'm giving myself confidence and promoting myself. Where, okay, everything that mattered in my journal. Notice how I never really said in there, I'm so glad that I hit X amount of money or X amount of wins or whatever. I'm constantly confirming and affirming to myself that the process is everything. And I'm very, it's about building satisfaction from those kind of things, where your journal is going to be where you're going to program yourself. So as much thoughts and as much energy I can put into those thoughts about programming my mental space to be in love and obsessed with managing risk, taking good trades, closing out the charts when I don't need to do anything stupid, and just defeating my mind. That to me shows progress, because everyone has had a bad day, right? In trading, where you've blown an account or whatever. I've blown tens of accounts. Um, so the difference there is, obviously, when I used to journal, would just be, I made this amount of money, boom, 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 right? And it's like, it's all technical and it's all money oriented and it's all outcome oriented. Instead, now it's just constantly just this, I want to have the best kind of mental framework that I can have. Um, and then when I can come back in on the weekends and read all of those, it's just reaffirming to myself that I'm a great trader, right? Because we all have self-doubt, and a lot of the major things in trading is you think that you're not good enough. So I'll always put in there some way that I'm a great trader. So I can just keep drilling that into my head so no one can tell me differently. I don't have to think differently. Even when I take a losing trade, I know that, okay, I can get this back, right? Okay, if I take a losing trade, all I got to hit is a 2R. And I know I can do that. I know the next day, if it offers me that setup, boom, I can take an 8R. And that's what happened. And building that confidence to me is everything. Where it's a mental game, right? At this point in my own career, it is about 90% mental. It's about 10% technical, where everything in my own trading is just mental. And there's I'm happy with where I am, and obviously I can improve in terms of the technical, but to win and lose and get payouts and etc. is just a mental side of it. So hopefully that obviously sheds some light into it. I'm never going to say that anyone's journal is bad, but I would say just see if you can do something more intensive where you want to have a paragraph, if you can, of um of just self-encouragement, right? Because no one else is going to encourage you and no one else really understands trading. You probably know that. So you have to be your biggest cheerleader and never write anything hateful or rude in your journal about yourself of, oh, I suck, or oh, I do this. It's not going to build you up in any way. So you've got to be a coach and a cheerleader. You're going to be a critic in some sense, but you're just writing that so that when you can come back to it, when you take multiple losses in a row or you're doubting your trading ability, you can come back into that and read that. And it's going to be the biggest lift up where you're lifting yourself up out of those losses mentally, maybe, and bring yourself back down out of those wins where you're just addicted to becoming the best possible version as you can. So hopefully that helps. Actually repeating this before my live trade closed. Yeah, fear does not control me. Exactly. It's all about that injecting logic. So I'm big on injecting logic. I'm big on that kind of post game just encouragement where then I'm hyping myself up before the day, after the day, during the day. So my mind is ready to go and there's nothing but a killer and positive mindset coming into a market that is bred to destroy you, right? It'll take everything it can. And you have to have a very, very abundant mindset to, number one, to trade, and obviously number two, to take money consistently out of this market. You got to believe that it's there just waiting for the taking. And obviously you got to take hold of that and not be greedy, not be fearful, but be level-headed and almost in this third realm where you're just in this attack mode against yourself, right? Because it's you versus you in this kind of game. I'm glad that helped. No problem. Don't worry, yeah, it's all recorded. I don't know why you're up at 5 a.m., but yo. Respect, my brother. Mad discipline. All right. Anyways, we've been going for about an hour here. So I'll post this up on YouTube, either unlisted or or publicly, probably unlisted. Got to keep the good stuff and hidden away, right? It'll probably be up by tomorrow. So if I forget, just remind me, but I'll post that as soon as I can when I'm willing to. And then obviously if you have any questions that I missed or anything that's going on psychologically, you want to just get off your mind, send me a DM. I'm always here to help, and obviously everyone in the Discord is as well. So I'm sure you could find someone to talk to if things are struggling for you in trading, or you just want someone to have some encouragement for you. It's always there for you. And obviously technically as well, right? You're struggling technically, boom. That's what the private group is for. I'm here for even publicly, right? This stuff is all public too. So if you want more intensive work, private group is there. If you want the most blueprint stuff where you want to trade like me, if you want to, the PDF is obviously for sale as well. And I don't even have to vouch for it because there's 5 stars for a reason, and everyone who has the PDF will speak for it itself. So I'm not a salesman or anything like that, but if you are struggling and want the best available stuff that I have, it's going to be in that PDF and in the private group. Otherwise, if you've not journaled today, please go in and journal and do the things that are necessary to succeed. take the day off tomorrow, rest, relax. If you're in the US, happy 4th. And obviously Saturday, Sunday, get your rest as well. And then we'll get back right into it on Monday and kill next week. All right. So enjoy the rest of your night or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Peace.